Hello. Welcome everyone. We'll just give folks a moment to join here. Okay, so we'll go ahead and get started. Hello everyone. My name is Sarah Avery and I am the Executive Director of Quanta Change. Thank you so much for joining me today. So I wonder if you ever feel like no one listens to you. Do you ever even feel invisible? Like no matter what you say or do, that you're just not being heard? Well, if so, this is something I've helped lots and lots of folks with to overcome through the Quanta Change process for more than 20 years. So have you tried lots of ways to address this problem for yourself? Maybe you've tried therapy or you've read books, you've gone to workshops, maybe you've watched videos. If something you found has worked and you're feeling more heard, that is fantastic. But if you're like a lot of folks I've heard from over the years, no matter what they've said, no matter what they do, no matter how hard they've worked to communicate more effectively, it just hasn't worked and they're not feeling heard. So does this sound familiar? If so, I really know how frustrating and painful that is, and I hear you on this. So I want you to know that it is not your fault if these methods have not worked for you. It's not because you haven't tried hard enough. It's not because you haven't found the right things to say or the right ways to say them, maybe the right way to present yourself. It's none of those things. It's because those methods that you've tried haven't been able to get to the source of the issue. So the root of this invisibility problem is the feeling buried in your sense of self that you don't matter just for being yourself. This feeling that you don't matter is just one type of learned distress, which is the feeling you absorbed very early in life that there's something wrong with you, being just the way that you are. Learned distress is what your sense of self draws upon, uses to generate all the negative situations and patterns that are going on in your life. So when I say the phrases, I don't matter, or there's something wrong with me, does that ring a bell? Does it sound really horrendously familiar maybe? Yeah. We all have learned distress. And the biggest chunk of learned distress that we have is the feeling that we don't matter. It just sucks, right? So the good thing is I have good news, which is that the Quanta Change process allows you to peel off layers of learned distress permanently. And it does that by working with your brain during sleep. Now, are you hearing that and thinking, wait, during sleep? Really, Sarah? Come on. That can't be right. But it's really true. So the reason is that your sense of self is getting recharged when you're asleep. And it's recharging with one of two kinds of feeling. One is learned distress, this feeling that there's something wrong with you. And the other is your core natural well-being. This is the center, the core of who you are, and it's the feeling that you are just great, just being yourself. So by accessing your sense of self during sleep and telling your brain you want to recharge with well-being instead of learned distress, that really does allow this deep feeling level change, this change that happens from peeling off layers of learned distress. And what happens when you do is that your natural well-being expands to take the place that learned distress was sitting, and your sense of self has more and more of your well-being to draw upon to generate situations and patterns in your life that are good, that feel good to you, in which, in this case of what we're talking about today, in which you feel like you matter and you do matter. It sounds good, right? Yeah. So now back to this feeling that you don't matter, though, that's been generating this horrible pattern of not being heard. So are you thinking, hey, wait a second, it takes two to tango, right? I mean, can't I just blame not being heard on the fact that these people aren't listening, well, it is totally true that everyone, not just you, but everyone is absolutely responsible for their own bad behavior. And that includes the people who have not been listening to you. But if you're seeing a negative pattern that keeps happening in your life, you can be sure that the root of that problem, the root of that pattern is your learned distress. And that's what you can do something about. So I'm going to say something really ungrammatical here. People treat us how we feel. Let me say it a little differently. People treat us in the way that we feel about being ourselves. Let me say it one more way. The way that you feel, the way that we feel is how people treat us. Okay, so let me explain what I mean by that. So we all have this sort of feeling radar going on underneath the surface, and it allows us to feel how other people feel, and they can sense how we feel. It's subtle, but I bet you've noticed it. Have you ever walked into a room where people have been arguing and you didn't hear the argument, but you can sure feel the tension between them? Have you felt that? That's your feeling radar working. But it's working on more subtle feelings all the time without you probably noticing it. And so we respond to how other people feel, and they respond to how we feel automatically based on what the feeling radar is picking up. So when someone's radar picks up your feeling that you don't matter, they treat you in a way that matches that. So by, let's say, not listening or ignoring you, or maybe even worse. That's why just trying to change on a behavioral level up here hasn't worked, because it isn't changing the underlying feeling that you don't matter. It's just layering some behavior on top of the feeling. But the reality is that people are responding to how we feel, not how we behave. So I really hope that's helping make some sense, and maybe even solve a mystery about why you haven't been able to change this pattern or some other negative pattern. So let me give you some examples of what it's like when this really changes for someone. So first example, this is a client who had the same kind of conversation over and over with a mentor for years. And it kind of went like this. She would tell her mentor, this is what's going on for me in my professional life. This is what I've been doing about it. Here's what I've been trying. And invariably, the mentor would cut her off and kind of say, hey, you just need to rein yourself in here. And it was really frustrating. But my client had unlearned some layers of this I don't matter, learned distress. And she ended up having another conversation with her mentor. And she said it was really different from any conversation they'd had before. The mentor listened and then listened some more. And then after my client had laid out this professional issue she'd been dealing with and what she'd done about it, her mentor said, well, it sounds like you've done everything you can do. Good job. She said that was incredibly different. So I wonder if you're thinking about someone in your life who you think, their behavior towards me is never going to change. I just know it. I have heard so many people say that, Sarah, I know how I'm going to feel different from Quanta Change, but that person's behavior, it's just never going to change. Sometimes it's like a parent or a sibling or somebody at work. And not 100% of the time, but more often than not, we see that person's behavior change towards my client. And that's because my client has changed how they feel, and that person is just, again, responding automatically to them feeling more like they matter. Let me give you another example. I had a client who saw this change in relation to her teenage son. And I always think change in this realm in relation to a teenager is extra big because, teenagers are in the part of their life where it's natural for them to test limits and push against boundaries and push back against parents, right? Parents are nodding their heads, I'm quite sure. So, she had had this struggle, I'm sure lots of parents have had these days, with her teenager and trying to get her concerns across to him about his use of technology. And it was just falling on deaf ears, and he was pushing back and pushing back. So she did some unlearning about I don't matter. And he came to her one day and he said, I have this thing I'm really, really struggling with, and I really want your help. And he told her about it, and she thought about it, and she said, I think the best thing that would really help you is to just eliminate all the social media off your devices. And instead of pushing back, he said, I think you're right. That's what I want to do. And he did it. And he was grateful for the help. So, especially if you have teenagers, does that sound kind of amazing? I have seen this kind of thing happen in relation to teenagers numerous times with my clients. Even teenagers can actually listen when you change this I don't matter thing underlying. So I hope that you are really feeling some hope that this can change for you, because it really can. So if you're wondering how to do that, how to get started, the first thing to do is find out which pattern of learned distress you have. So there are 6 main patterns of learned distress. They are the idealist, the perfectionist, the optimist, the caregiver, the defeatist, and the dictator. Sometimes we call that benevolent dictator. The reason to find out which pattern you have is because that's what you're going to be unlearning through the Quanta Change process. That's what allows you to uncover your natural well-being, which is your uniqueness. That's who you really are. You are not your pattern of learned distress. So that's why we find out which pattern of learned distress you have first. So in order to do that, you're going to go to my website and fill out a free in-depth it's a scientifically validated personality test that measures learned distress. And I'm going to graph your answers and send you a free report with your pattern, your how you've been surviving with it, and how Quanta Change really might help you feel better. And in the case of what we're talking today, feel more like you matter and really see that play out in your life. So in order to do that, you're going to go to my website, Quanta Change, Quanta change.com, and click on the free report button. So thank you so much for joining me today. And next week, I'll look forward on Friday again to helping you understand more about how the Quanta Change process really can help you feel good being you. Thanks so much for joining me.